You know, this morning, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was struggling hard. And I can't put my finger on exactly what it was. There was a lot going on. Worship was huge. I don't think there's any coincidence to the songs that God picks for a Sunday, or they put on Beverly's heart this week. I was struggling with fear this morning. I'm just going to be honest with you. Coming in here, fear that I'm tired and can't deliver a message, fear that, I don't know. I can't even put it into words. But during that song, God just showed me, you're struggling with fear. And I needed to hear that fear is a liar. So I'm going to stand right here in the gap for our entire church and say, fear is a liar. And we bind you in the name of Jesus until you believe.
That's right. Amen.
I'm pretty sure fear's a Cubs fan. I'm sorry, I tried to hold back. Second song, I'm sorry, I can't remember the first song. Second song, Fear's a Liar. Third song comes up, and this place was designed first and foremost to be a wedding venue, and then God turned it into a church. And that song said, like a bride waiting for a groom, we'll be a church ready for you. That's my prayer for all of us, that we're a church ready for Him. When that trumpet blows and we sing, that it's not an oh crap moment. It's a praise Jesus, and we're flat down on our hands and knees thanking Him that He's here. That's what we want our church to be. Third song comes on, Simple Gospel. It is one of my favorite songs because I grew up in an environment, and I don't mean my church so much or my parents or my family. I just grew up in this culture where it's more about the denomination and the person than it is about Jesus.
Yep.
The gospel is so simple. My goal for you guys is you know Jesus as your friend. Because if you know Him as your friend, I won't have to question if you've been baptized.
Amen.
Because you'll do it because He said so. I won't have to question if you're laying down fear because you'll do it because He said so. And we're going to get into a little bit more of that today. So as I was praying about what to preach about today, God kept giving me this word discipleship. 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 And every time I've been in a church, I want to be careful, I'm not trying to disparage anything, but every time I've been in a church, when they mentioned the word discipleship, it was, okay, well, we've got a program for that.
Yeah.
Here's your book. Go get a guy. He'll disciple you for a year, and then you'll be prepared to go disciple someone else for a year. That's never sat right. And for probably years, I just struggled with, is this what Jesus intended when He said, go make disciples? So this message kind of started with just, how do we define what discipleship is? How do I encourage you to get involved in discipleship without handing you a book or a spreadsheet of people to keep up with who you're going to disciple and how long it needs to be and what are the rules? If I tell you you got to get discipled a year before you can disciple somebody, that's not what Jesus said. But as I went through it, I kind of thought, okay, if I'm going to talk about what discipleship is, then I've got to talk about what a disciple is to begin with, right? And then God started kind of pouring in something I learned from a gentleman several years ago about there's different levels of discipleship. And then we can talk about how you disciple someone. Then I started into the first topic on what a disciple is. And 45 minutes or so later of a sermon, I realized, okay, I'll save the rest for next time. So I'm going to just try my best to define what a disciple is intended to be in a short amount of time this morning. Because I don't think we can move on how we disciple others until we fully understand this. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to ask some soul-searching questions. I don't want you to raise your hands. Please don't, okay? No raising of hands on these. These are for internal reflection. How many of you believe in Jesus Christ? How many of you are still checking out who Jesus is to determine if you want to believe in Jesus Christ? How many of you are trying to figure out what's in it for you to determine if it's worth giving 100% to believing in Him? How many of you would consider yourself a Jesus follower? Wait, and a believer and a follower are the same thing? I don't know. How How many of you would say you're a disciple of Jesus? I got a believer, follower, disciple. How many of you would say that every decision you make during every day is 100% led by Jesus? These are just internal reflection questions, but I want you to keep these in your mind as you go through this, because where you are in those questions may influence how you hear this. So let's start out by just looking at a simple definition of what a disciple is. So I always go to a worldly dictionary first before we go to the Bible. Webster says, a disciple is someone who accepts and assists in spreading the beliefs or teachings of another. A person who accepts or assists in spreading the beliefs or teaching of another. So that means any major leader could have disciples, right? It's someone who's going to come along, hear something they like, and go assist in spreading whatever that message is. If you go to the Oxford Dictionary, it actually is more specific, and it says a disciple is a personal follower of Jesus Christ during his life. That sounds a little bit better, but it kind of just pigeonholed everybody. You can't be a disciple unless you were alive when Jesus was alive. Because it says a personal follower of Jesus during his life, Jesus' life. So 3 weeks ago, when we were teaching on baptism, we looked at Matthew 28, 19 and 20. Jesus said, "Go, therefore go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." So the first part of that, Jesus says, go. Go. Go and make disciples. But if you look at the Greek word there, when he says make disciples, he literally meant to go teach and instruct people to follow his commands. So I'm going to kind of start there with the definition of a disciple. A disciple who is someone who literally follows the commands of Jesus Christ. Therefore, to disciple someone, you have to teach someone how to follow Jesus. You guys with me? See, it's kind of key. He didn't say, go convince them to believe in me. He didn't say, go tell them who I am. He said, go teach them to follow my instructions. To me, there's a huge difference there. Go teach them so that they will follow his instructions. So to be a disciple is a little bit deeper to me than just being a believer. According to this scripture, we actually have to do something. We have to follow what Jesus said. Okay? You guys with me so far?
Yes.
Luke 9:23. Then Jesus said to the crowd, "If anyone wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me." Give up your own way. One translation says, deny yourself. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper. So to be a disciple, I need to follow Jesus' instructions. But if I want to be his follower, I got to give up the things I want to do. The things that I'm naturally born to want to do. You ever notice that the things we want to do are sort of in opposition to following a lot of his instructions, if we were to just be totally honest? We're going to go into some of those in a few minutes. So to deny yourself here means to literally forget oneself, lose sight of your own interests. So to be a disciple, we've got to do a few things. We've got to give up what we want to do. We've got to give up our selfish ambition. We've got to take up our cross daily. It literally means to pick up and carry a cross. You have to do work. And there's a key word there. Daily. Daily, 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 daily.
Yeah.
Not once a week. I'm going to pick up my cross. I'm going to let go of my selfish desires because I'm actually going to wake up on Sunday morning and go to church. That, to me, as a kid, felt like denying myself. Right? Some Sundays it still feels like that now. That's not what Jesus said. He didn't say deny yourself on Sunday morning, go and worship me, carry your cross that day, put on a big smile, talk to everyone like you know me, say you're a believer and be comfortable. He said, do some things that are uncomfortable. Give up what you want to do. Pick up this cross daily. Follow me. Daily. Everybody get the daily word? I think we get caught up sometimes in, is this person a believer? And maybe we should be asking, is this person a follower? Aaron brought it up. He stole a little bit of my thunder. We heard the same guy say the same thing. He said it to him, and he walked in the room and said it to me, and he walked into the room and said it to Wendy. That's how he introduced himself to me. I've been an evangelist for 27 years. The bride, he literally closed his eyes. Oh, she hadn't been baptized. And then her dad walks through and he goes, oh, and he's lost. I mean, the guy could hear him.
So lost, just lost.
It's sad. That's how we determine somebody's, okay, they're a believer. They're a believer, so let's leave them alone. They're good. But what's he doing, or me, or you, to take that person, somebody else, that step further to be a follower? To help them understand there's more to this than just believing. We have to take this a step further and follow. John 8:31 and 32. Jesus said to the people who believed in him, you are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings. So to follow him, we got to do what he says, but we got to remain faithful to those teachings to be called a disciple. And then he says a scripture we throw around all the time. So I'm going to go back. You are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Anybody ever use that? You catch somebody in a lie, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Totally out of context. Jesus says, if you're truly my disciple, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We've got to use that verse in the correct context. So number one, he says, you're my disciples if you do what I say, then you'll know the truth, and it will set you free. So I think a lot of us want that truth part. We want to know the truth. We want to set it free, but we don't want to do the if part. We don't want to do the follow part. We don't want to do the part about giving up and denying. Matthew 4:19-20. Jesus called out to them, come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. There's different translations. I will make you fishers of men is a famous one. This one says, come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. And they left their nets at once and followed him. So who are we talking about here? The disciples, right? What were the disciples doing? Well, that day he goes to them. He tells them, follow me, come follow me, and I'll show you how to fish for people. They got up and they left. He's talking to men that had a livelihood of fishing. That's all they knew. All they knew how to do was fish. If I'm going to eat tonight, I got to fish today. If my family's going to eat tonight, I got to fish today. My dad owns a fishing company, or whatever they called it back then, and when he dies, I'm going to take over the boats and the fishing nets in the company, and we're going to fish. Jesus walks up and says, leave all this and follow me. See, that was comfortable for them. That's what they knew how to do. They knew every day, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get the boat, I'm going to go out this time, I'm going to throw the nets over, I'm going to bring the nets in. If I got fish, great. If I don't, I'm going to do this again. I don't know exactly how they did it, but the point is, that was comfortable for them. But Jesus said, leave what's comfortable for you right now and follow me. And it doesn't say, well, a year or two later, they decided this was a good idea and they followed him. It says they immediately followed him. They left their nets at once and followed him. I just want to reiterate that. Can you get your mind around Jesus walking into your job that you're comfortable with today or tomorrow morning and saying, leave. Leave what you're doing right now and come follow me. How are we going to eat? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay the car note? But that's what Jesus did to him. He walked right into their place of work and said, come follow me. And I'm going to teach you how to fish for people, but you got to come now. Come on. And they left it once and went. It's all they knew. It was their life. It was every day. It's everything they had. But I think that's some of our problem when we settle into being believers and not followers. Part of the problem is there's things that we're comfortable with we don't want to leave to follow, right? Sometimes we're not willing to part with what we're comfortable with, so we talked about jobs and all that stuff. That's easy to think about. Well, maybe some of us are just comfortable with just believing. I'm comfortable with just believing and identifying as a Christian. But it would be really uncomfortable to put in the effort to follow, so I'll just be a believer. I'm comfortable with showing up and being critical of someone who's just a believer, but it would be very uncomfortable for me to step into that person's life and help teach them how to follow. So I'll just step back and be critical of them. Maybe we get comfortable with being hurt by someone, not releasing forgiveness toward them, creating bitterness. Maybe we get comfortable being in the self-pity land of woe is me and everything's always wrong with me and this is my lot in life and things aren't going to get any better. Maybe we get comfortable with fear. Maybe we get comfortable with our own selfishness and we just can't give up the things we need to give up to truly follow. Jordan preached on it last week. Maybe we're just comfortable with our pride. Now, I don't struggle with pride. Anybody thought that before? Okay, well then you struggle with pride. Right? Maybe we're comfortable with being controlling because when we can control things, things aren't uncomfortable, right? So if we control it, it's not uncomfortable. Maybe we're comfortable getting angry when we can't control things. Because when we get angry, everybody around us kind of, make sure we're okay and they stop arguing with us. Maybe we're comfortable with sexual sin. Maybe we're comfortable with sexual sin that nobody knows about. Maybe we're comfortable with sexual sin that everybody knows about. Jeff said earlier, what do we define as sin anymore? Maybe we're comfortable with gossip. Maybe we're comfortable with anxiety. It's just who I am. It's who God made me to be. I just accept it and manage it. I mentioned it before. Maybe we're comfortable with our critical or negative thinking. Maybe we're comfortable playing video games that aren't good for us, that are putting bad things into our mind. Maybe we're comfortable with music that we know is bad for our soul. We preached on that several weeks ago. Maybe we're comfortable with watching movies or TV shows that are bad for our soul, like Criminal Minds. Right? What about your marriage? Maybe you're just comfortable in your marriage, but you're not truly submitting to each other like Jesus said to do. Maybe you're comfortable in your marriage and you're comfortable complaining about what you're not getting, what that person's not fulfilling for you. Maybe you're comfortable in your marriage being in a place where you're okay with being selfish. Maybe you're comfortable with just carrying guilt and shame from something that happened from your past. Maybe you caused that past, maybe you didn't, maybe it just happened. Oh, but you don't know what I did, you don't know where I've come from, you don't know what they did to me. Here's what I know. I know that Jesus said he came to set the captive and the prisoner free.
Come on.
And the difference between the two is a captive, I said it before and I'll say it again, the difference between the two is a captive is in prison and they did nothing wrong. And a prisoner is in prison because they did something wrong. They're both in prison, doesn't matter how they got there. Jesus came to set you free from your past, from the guilt, from the shame. If you follow him, if you do what he says and repent, if you do what he says and make those changes. Sorry, I chased a little tangent on that one. Maybe it's codependency we're comfortable with. Most people don't even know they have codependency because they're doing it and nobody's ever told them. But probably everybody in this room has had it at some level at some point. Maybe we're comfortable with depression and loneliness. Maybe we're comfortable with being sick. My point is, there's a lot of things in this world that we get real comfortable with and we don't take time to stop and think about it. When Jeff said earlier, you gotta ask God to search for that sin. I think this is what we're talking about. We've got to ask God to expose these things that we don't see as our blind spots. And we've got to trust the people around us that can come to us in love and tell us those things without getting upset and mad at them when they point these out to us. So I'm going to ask a question. Is there anyone's toes I didn't step on this morning? It's good we can take a week off next week, right? Jesus didn't seem scared about stepping on toes. He showed up and he said, give up the way you want to do things. Take up this cross daily. That takes effort. And for some of us, that may mean we need to kind of leave that old self, and that old self's still around. There's an old me I don't like, guys. And if you've heard my testimony, you know why I don't like it. But one day I had to make a decision to lay that person down and pick up a cross every day. And I promise you, whether you believe it or not, I have to choose to pick it up every day. Last night, we had a bottle of champagne explode all over the ceiling in Broadway. That old man almost came out. That old man would cuss and swear. That old man would probably punch somebody and say some really rude things. And I had to go in there and pray. I had to go in there and scrub that ceiling on a ladder for 2 hours. And you know what I repeated over and over in my mind? Colossians 3:23. Do it as if you're doing it for the Lord, not for me. Do it as if you're doing it for the Lord, not for man. Do it as if you're doing it for the Lord, not for man. And I walked outside, and a man walked up to me and he said, how did you not lose your cool? I said, man, I just prayed and talked to Jesus the whole time because the old me would have done that. See, it turned into a witnessing opportunity. And then we stood and had a 15-minute conversation about how could he become that person. I'm going to promise you right now, that wasn't an easy thing to do. Okay? I promise you. I walked into this morning, saw a few spots I missed, and had to lay it down again today. Okay? If anybody from last night watches this video, they're going to know how lost they are. I don't know. What's my point? I love you guys. I love you. I truly love you. And to love you, I want to teach you. I want to teach you what it means to follow Jesus. Not just believe, but to follow. We can get so wrapped up in salvation, we just got to believe, we just got to believe, we just got to believe. But for us to be ready, to be a bride ready for the groom, it's got to be more than believing. It's got to be following. We've got to put down what we know, what we're comfortable with, what we know, what we do every day, and take up our cross and follow him if we're going to be a bride that's ready. I know I'm going to step on some toes here, but I want you to follow Jesus, not me. We live in a culture that's all about believe in Jesus, follow a pastor. Yeah. Believe in Jesus, follow the church. Believe in Jesus, follow a denomination. Believe in Jesus, follow Jesus. Help hold me accountable to follow Jesus, and we'll be a bride ready for a groom. Okay? Don't follow me. Most of you know me. No, you don't want to completely follow me. Don't follow Billy Graham. Don't follow Stephen Furtick. I'm just throwing out some popular names. Don't follow Robert Morris. Follow Jesus Christ. Are those men all good men? Yes, absolutely. They done wonderful things for Christ? Yes. Will they continue to, the ones that are still alive? Yes. But don't follow them. Maybe listen to them, get some guidance, but get your head in the Bible and learn it for yourself. It's not really that difficult. That's the beauty of the song, the simple gospel. You just read it. See, we've been brought in this culture. It's, I don't understand it. You won't understand it, so let the preacher tell it to you. And the preacher tells you wrong, you grow up believing wrong. Let's go back to Peter. Peter was willing to walk away from his nets instantly. Later on, Jesus would call what some of us call Peter, his best friend, a lot of people will say, the rock on which the church would be built. But Jesus had to look him straight in the face one time and say, get behind me, Satan. Hang on, Peter had given up his career. He immediately gave up what he knew. He's comfortable. He followed Jesus. But you know what he didn't do? He didn't give up his mindset of his expectations of what that meant. Being a disciple is constantly learning more and more and more. It's just like Jeff said. When he was first a Christian, he thought he was just running, what did you say, towards a set of rules or towards a set of, I can't remember how you said it. as we mature as a disciple, our mindset has to change about how we approach everything. So Peter's willing to get out of the boat, walk away from this, from everything he knew, what he was comfortable with, but his mindset about who Jesus was or was to him was still the same. So Jesus tries to explain to the disciples that he would suffer and die. Peter pulls him aside and gets on to him. Don't say that. You're not going to die. Surely you're not going to die. It won't happen to you. Let's go back to that scripture. I'm actually going to look at Matthew 16:24. I looked at Luke 9:23, but the same story told in a different gospel. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. If you read that story, back up a little bit, Jesus says, who do you think I am? He goes to his trusted group of people and says, who do you think I am? Peter says, you're Jesus, you're the Son of God, you're the Messiah, you're our Savior. Jesus says, congratulations, son, you get it. And you're going to be the rock with churches. But he changed his name right there from Simon to Peter. Then Jesus says, but part of you guys don't understand, so I'm going to have to die. Peter says, no, that's not going to happen. Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. That all happened in 6 verses. So Jesus went from being the guy that got it to the get behind me, Satan in 6 verses. What? I'm sorry. Thank you. Peter went from being the guy that Jesus said got it to the guy that Jesus called Satan in 6 verses. Thank you, son. So should it be easier for us to follow Jesus though? Because we know the whole story. We know how it ended. Peter and the apostles didn't have a clue how it ended. They didn't understand he was going to have to die. We've grown up knowing that what we were believing in was he had died. So shouldn't it be easier for us? Jesus died, he was buried, he was raised after 3 days, he ascends to heaven, so the Holy Spirit can come. The disciples had no clue of this. They lived through it with him, didn't even understand it while it was happening. Or on the other hand, maybe it's easier for the disciples because they were actually with Jesus. They saw him do miracles. They saw him do the healing, so maybe it's a little bit farther easier to go out on a limb. What I'm talking about is it easier for us to give up the things we are comfortable with, or was it easier for the disciples? And my argument comes back to maybe if we walked a little closer with Jesus each day, it'd be easier to give these things up. Because it's easy for me to step back and have a mindset of they saw Jesus do the healings. They saw him do the miracles, so I could just go with it. I could follow him. I could give up things. He's a pretty cool dude. He's doing some crazy cool things. But all I'm asking you to do is walk closer with Jesus every day. And then it will become easier for you to give up the things you need to give up. Or maybe if somebody saw enough Jesus in me and in you, they'd be willing to give up a few things they don't want to give up. How do we get to that point? I want to be at the point where somebody sees so much Jesus in me, they go, I'll give up whatever I got to give up to get what you got, to get the peace you have. I've watched you give up fear. I've watched you give up this lifestyle. I've watched you give up money. I've watched you, how did you get there? I want that. And to me, that's what a disciple should be. Somebody that follows Jesus so closely and so hard and is willing to give up things that other people are attracted to Jesus because they see Jesus in you. So this morning, I'm begging you to follow him, not just believe, not just know him. And I'm going to ask you to do something right now. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask anybody to raise hands. Close your eyes. And I want you to ask God right now, what is it that you need to give up? God, what is it that I need to give up? Maybe it's not just a what is it, maybe it's what are the things I need to give up so that I can follow Jesus, not just believe. Maybe you're already following Jesus, but you need to take that step a deep further and following him closer. of that big long list, and that's not an all-inclusive list, what are the things that stuck out to you that you're holding on to that you know you've got to give up right now? What's the one thing on that list you feel like you gave up, but it's bad? And now you realize you got to give it up every day. For me this morning, it was fear. And about half the rest of the list. So, Father, as people sit here today with their eyes closed talking to you, Father, I just ask that you expose to them in a very soft and loving way. What is that one thing or those things that they need to drop? What have we become comfortable with? So comfortable we don't even see it. God, what am I so comfortable with that I don't even see it when someone tells me in an argument? Father, please show me and show each of them what it is they need to drop today and what they'll have to drop tomorrow and the next day, so that they can truly be a disciple, not just a believer, but a disciple who follows Jesus. Jesus, I love you, and I want to follow you, and I don't even know what that means sometimes. But I pray today that you're just convicting people's hearts of what they need to lay down. I want to be a bride ready for you when you come. I want everyone who steps foot in this place to be a bride ready for you. Whether you come this fall, Jesus, next fall, or after we're all dead and gone, the day you show up, I want to be able to fall at your feet and be a bride ready for you, because I gave up and picked up my cross daily and followed you. And I pray that same prayer for everyone.